Hi there, you're watching the Mechanical SLR Lounge, and today I have for you one of the most, if not the most, iconic, popular, whatever descriptor you want to use, mechanical SLR ever made, the Pentax Spotmatic. Um, in the United States, if it was officially imported by Honeywell, it said Honeywell Pentax, otherwise it was the Asahi Pentax. As you can see, this is the Honeywell version. So before I get into the specifics about the camera, I'm going to tell you a little bit about its release and unveiling. So it was first unveiled at Photokina in 1960. Photokina was a camera expo in Europe. And at the time of this unveiling, it had spot metering, hence the name Spotmatic, and a cadmium sulfide cell that would swing down into view to take the light reading, and then flip back up when you took the actual image, which is quite an ingenious idea, but I'm sure it would have been extraordinarily complicated to mass produce, and I can't help but feel like there would be reliability issues, especially nowadays, whatever, like 40, 50 years later. And then the shutter speed was originally going to go up to 2,000, and they were actually going to use a new bayonet mount for this camera. However, when it was released in 1964, they ended up going with center-weighted metering instead of spot metering because they figured it would be easier for the average consumer to use. They kept the name Spotmatic though, because Centermatic or center-weighted matic doesn't really have the same ring to it, does it? It released with dual cadmium sulfide cells on the top and bottom of the viewfinder, max shutter speed of 1,000, and they just used M42 screw mount so they could continue to use their Takumar lenses and the many other thousands of lenses that were available and are still available. This was not the first camera with through the lens metering, but it was the first accessible camera. And what I mean by accessible is affordable. There was also the Topcon RE Super and the Alpha 9D, but both of those were far more expensive than this camera. In fact, I was just recently looking at listings for the Alpha 9D, and some of them were selling for upwards of $2,000. The cheapest one I could find was around $450 to $500, and it wasn't even in, I don't know if it was in usable condition or if there was something severely wrong with it, but either way, they're very, very premium prices. And then this little guy happened, and TTL became accessible to a lot more people. This same body was actually used, not the identical body, but pardon me, something very similar was used in the K1000 all the way up until 1997. Which is just kind of a signifier of how significant this design and aesthetic was and remains. So up top on the top plate, we have the shutter speed, like I said before, top speed of 1,000th of a second, and it goes all the way through to 1 second and bulb. The flash sync is a 60th of a second. You've got the film counter here. I actually really like this little counter window. I like that it's on top of the advanced lever. I don't know why, I just find it very satisfying. You've got the little black indicator there to show you what shutter speed you're set at. I don't know if you can see that well. Threaded shutter release. On the left-hand side, you have the film rewind, and you actually also have a film type indicator. So you've got panchro for black and white, you've got color there, and then you also have an empty indicator there. So you always know what's in your camera, because it does not have the film paper holder on the back. I can't remember the specific name for it right now, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. On the front, you've got your flash ports here. You've got your stop down and metering switch. So when you flick that up, that will turn on the meter and will stop down your lens if you're using a compatible lens. I am not. This is a Helios 44 this is a fully like preset lens, so there's no automatic exposure. Flick that down to bring it back to normal. Turn the meter off. So the meter itself will be on the right hand side of the viewfinder. There'll be a plus and a minus, plus on top, minus on the bottom, and a little space in between. When the needle's in the space in between, that's when you know you have the correct exposure. This is my first roll of film in this camera. That's why I'm not opening up the back to show you, otherwise I would. So I'm not sure how accurate the light meter is, but I do know that it is working. When I turn the meter on and point it at something bright, it shows overexposure, something dark shows underexposure. So I don't really know what more you could ask for. I did have to do some serious work on the battery door. When I got this camera as part of a camera lot, actually. It was a lot of 3 off of eBay. I might do a video on all 3 at the same time, actually. That could be fun. So what I actually ended up having to do was drill some holes and then use a camera lens wrench, like an adjustable wrench, to get this door open. It took a lot of work and a lot of stress, but I did get it off eventually. Cleaned out the compartment, put a Type 392 silver oxide battery in there, and yeah, it seems to be working. I've seen people say online that this has a bridged circuit and that a 1.5 volt battery should not change the accuracy of the light meter compared to a 1.3 volt. I'm going to stick with what they said because, of course, there are people who debate this. But if it means that I don't have to get the circuitry redone in this camera or buy an adapter, then I think a silver oxide battery is just fine. If you do plan on using a 1.5 volt battery with one of these cameras, you do want to use the silver oxide, not alkaline. Alkaline has a very steep voltage reduction curve. So basically what that means is as soon as you put that battery in and start using it, the voltage is reduced, whereas the silver oxide maintains a steady 1.5 volts until it completely dies. So stick with silver oxide. They're a little bit more expensive, but it's definitely worth it. We also have a self-timer here. Like most cameras of the time, it's approximately 10 seconds. The later versions of this camera, the SP500 and SP1000, they were released, I think, about 7 to 10 years after this was originally released. They were basically budget versions of this, so they were very similar, except they had no self-timer. The SP500 only had a shutter speed of up to 0.05 of a second, but you could actually advance it further and still use 1,000th of a second. They basically just used the same camera as the SP1000 and just left off the 1,000th of a second marking. I don't know if they calibrated it precisely for 1,000th of a second, but I've heard that it is more than usable, so that's kind of funny. Yeah, on the bottom, same thing I said before. The battery door's there. We've got a mount here if you want to use a tripod. This is the film release button. Very like bare bones basic camera, but it works. It worked, and it probably will continue to work for many years to come. Yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Take care.